everyone. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. Joining us is Lauren Simonetti, Leslie Marshall, Rebecca Heinrichs, and Dan Hoffman. And this is Outnumbered. Russian troops have bore down on Ukraine's capital with gunfire and explosions. And we're now learning thousands of Russian Marines have landed in southeast Ukraine for a beach assault. But Ukrainian resistance has proven stronger than expected. Well, you know who has shown strength, Leslie, are the people of Ukraine. I was so touched, as described by one tweet, of 13 Ukrainians that spoke for the world. These were 13 Ukrainians, Leslie, on a small island called Snake Island. I want you to listen to this audio. Listen closely. It's a Ukrainian border guard's defiant last words, captured on audio while he's defending this island in the face of a Russian battleship. 13 heroes, Leslie, standing until the end.
Oh, absolutely. And this is one of the things that Vladimir Putin did not expect, is such pushback from Ukraine. I want to refer to my notes to give you exact numbers as of 3 p.m. in Ukraine. This is how much fighting back that these individuals who are truly fighting for their freedom, for their democracy and their nation have hit Vladimir Putin and his troops with. 2,800 troops lost, 80 tanks, 516 armored vehicles, 10 airplanes, 5 helicopters. We're talking about days. They originally had said hours. But I also want to speak to these sanctions. And this is one of the things we're seeing with the Ukrainian people. They are united in the fight for their country against Russia. We and the rest of the world need to be united in our support of Ukraine, of freedom, and of democracy. I would agree with something that Rebecca said, and by the way, House Speaker Pelosi also agrees. We sent $650 million, but we spent specifically $200 million in equipment. House Speaker Pelosi said we need $650 million more specifically in weapons. We also need training. We're talking about that. We also need NATO down the road to do something about, maybe you're not a NATO nation, but what about if you are a nation like Ukraine that is important to the international community among the NATO members? And then lastly, we have bipartisan support among Democrats and Republicans who are saying, look, the sanctions day one, $39 billion hit to the financial sector in Russia, but it doesn't go far enough. We need Iran-style sanctions, and I do agree with that, as do 90% of 362 scholars who are Russian experts in American universities. So we need to do more, and we need to do it now. But I will say, because this is emotional and has been since 2014 for Vladimir Putin, I fear that because he seems to want to go back to the days of Stalin, that may not stop him. Some people say he's bordering delusional at this point.
He is, Leslie. This tweet from Barak Ravid, he's the Middle East correspondent for Axios. He has some reporting that Zelensky actually said this, breaking in a video conference call last night. Ukraine President Zelensky told EU leaders, "This might be the last time you see me alive." 2 sources briefed on the call told me, but he's staying nonetheless.
I think, a captain goes down with their ship, and I think he's doing the right thing as a leader. We saw everyone cringe when the leader of Afghanistan bailed on his nation and his people, and I commend the Ukrainian president for not doing that. Remember also, Kayleigh, that we have heard rumblings amongst our allies that if he were to leave, then perhaps we would not be taking the situation in Ukraine as seriously on an international level, and the international community might not be as supportive. Speaking of supportive, one of the areas in which the United States' hands are tied a little bit, and one of the nuclear options, if you will, with sanctions, is cutting Russia off from the SWIFT bank system, right? But we have pushback from our European allies on that. So do we anger the entire international community and our allies to pull the trigger on one of these very significant additional steps that could be taken? Again, internationally and in this nation, we need to be united as we see the Ukrainian people united, because the majority of the world, the Western world, we have more than 50% of the world's economy. Russia with China, less than 20%. Russia alone, even worse than that. And one more thing, to the president's point about a month from now, I don't believe the president's saying we're going to impose these sanctions and wait a month to do more. I do think, just listening to authorities on what these sanctions can do, there are short-term effects, but even more damaging long-term effects. One more thing, if they cut off from the Swiss bank system, you're talking more than a 5% reduction in Russia's GDP.
Yes. Shots fired at a Kyiv train station as crowds of people try to get out of the capital city. Meantime, farther west in Ukraine, air raid sirens have gone off multiple times today in Lviv, a westernized college town. And meanwhile, the people of Ukraine suffer, Leslie. Look at this, a moving scene. This is in Kyiv, where a woman cries, and she's singing the Ukrainian national anthem while sleeping away from broken glass at her apartment window that occurred just after a Russian strike. I've also seen video of Christian men and women, Ukrainians, in the subway singing songs about their faith. They're suffering, Leslie.
Oh, absolutely. War is hell, and this is exactly what we see. But this is exactly an example, I would agree with Jennifer Griffin, of why it looks as if Vladimir Putin has become unhinged. He has been in an emotional state and reacting emotionally since 2014. This has been brewing since 2014, and I don't think there's any stopping him because he doesn't care on a level of humanity that we all share when we see these images of these Ukrainian people. I would agree with Dan. He hates freedom. And I also believe that he either thinks it's 1975 or he wants to go back to 1975, no matter the cost. I would disagree. I think it was Rebecca earlier that said it would not be an intentional, strike on a NATO nation. I think all rules, go out the window with this guy at this point, because I do believe he has become completely unhinged. And to Lauren's point, I wouldn't say it's light to attack 80% and have sanctions against 80% of the financial institutions in Russia and attacking them on almost every level, mining and coal, not just the financial institutions, individual oligarchs, And then the first day alone, as I mentioned before, I reiterate that $39 billion just in day one, to the president's point. Let's see what happens a month from now. And of course, more sanctions, I believe, will be coming because we do have that bipartisan support. And I believe, and I'm a Democrat, we need to have an Iranian style sanction against Vladimir Putin. But I also said, I'm not sure that's going to deter a guy that either mentally really is, again, in 1975, or wants to bring us back there.
Yeah, the thought that it could affect our critical infrastructure, it's frightening indeed. Check this out, Leslie. This is from Anonymous. This is a group of hackers. They say, quote, "We want the Russian people to understand that we know it's hard for them to speak out against their dictator for fear of reprisals. So while people around the globe smash your internet providers to bits, understand that it's entirely directed at the actions of the Russian government and Putin."
In other words, you, the people of Russia, don't hate us. We're just attacking Vladimir, not all of you. But with what Russia's done, even though the Russian people's hands are tied largely, you know what I saw, Kaylee, before the broadcast on European TV outlets, there have been a couple of reports of some Russians that are in hospitals that are saying that they were told as soldiers that Ukraine attacked first. So some of them truly believe they're defending themselves, and we kind of knew that would be one of the things Vladimir Putin would do, because that's an MO for him. And also an MO for him are cyber attacks, right? This is what he does before he invades a country. He's done it now with the Ukraine. He did it with Crimea. They start little and then they increase. So I'm not surprised that we're readying ourselves for some type of cyber attack here. To Dan's point, I agree 100%. Russia meddled in our elections. They did so through the internet, where a cyber attack would come through. And, I don't put anything, again, beyond this leader. This is a man who had bounties on the heads of United States military troops.